Alright, welcome everybody to the Trackstars Formula 2 Round 10 in the Australian GP around the beautiful Bathurst track. Good news, no rain is scheduled for the weekend at all, so bright sunny blue skies, and as always I'm joined by my fellow commentator in Spud. Welcome my friend.
G'day DJ. Yes, no rain, unlike that tornado or cyclone that we had the other day around near only like 30 kilometres north of Bathurst. That was a bit freaky for some of those people there. That's the first I've ever seen a tornado happen in Australia, like at least near the mountaintop. That was pretty scary, you could say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty weird, to be honest. Like, yeah, as you said, like I've never seen it, and it's just in such a weird spot, like, to be there.
Yeah, like it was, like yeah, it was. I mean, I guess you can say thankfully it didn't hit Bathurst. Otherwise, it would have been a mess. At least with a month to go until the Bathurst 1000. But yeah, obviously it was a little bit. I think it was like about 30 minutes of just a pure cyclone going in the northern regions, 30 kilometres north of Bathurst. So that's pretty bad. Mother Nature does ruin things, but hopefully all those families are all okay and everyone's safe, and there's a bit of a clean up to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's good that it didn't go through there, because I think if it went through there, we had a bit of a mess, to be honest. Like obviously with the pits and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good to see that it didn't go there. But if it did hit anyone around that area, we do wish the best of them in the recovery and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely right. So as we get qualifying underway, we have our usual suspects usually up the front, Matt and Viper Z. So here's an interesting fact, DJ. Out of the last 6 races that Matt and Viper Z have won, Viper Z has won 5 of the past 6 races, and that has put him in right in contention to be second place in the standings. But what I do see is I do not see a Xylon 96 joining us. The championship leader is not available, so this is going to mean Viper Z is going to take the lead of the TSF2 championship.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen there if Viper gets a DNF as such? Like,
yeah, that's true. Yes, you can't rule that one out as well. If Viper Z does actually get a disconnection or a DNF, like you said, anything can happen. You know, as we all know, GT sport lobbies are, anything can go. You can have a great race and then get disconnected, and then you can have a bad race and then everyone in front of you gets disconnected. You know, any of those things can happen towards drivers. But qualifying is underway, and we are at the beautiful Mount Panorama Bathurst. We just saw some touring cars come around here. Now we've got Formulas circulating the 6.213 kilometre circuit, located northwest of Sydney, about a bit over 2 hours drive away west of Sydney. And it's a lovely spot, DJ. You know this spot like from on the back of your hand, going there in real life as a race marshal, and of course racing here on GT Sport.
yeah, I think when I started playing GT Sport, I was like, oh, I'm not going to race anywhere except Bathurst, you know. So I was always hunting Bathurst rooms. But well, you know, look at me, man. I'm in a league, fighting for the top. Fighting for top 6.
Well, funny enough, this is actually where you made your Trackstars Racing Series debut. I managed to reel you in to race in the formulas around here, and look where you are now.
Yeah, a little bit of about a year on. Yeah, so I think I debuted actually at the 1000, so I helped out Justin. I can't exactly remember.
No, you did race formulas. Just had a look back at the stats. Yeah, you did. You did race in the formulas at that event. I think you placed within the top 8, so that was a pretty good start for you. But then you just went a bit AWOL until you make your return in the touring cars, helping out Justin 930 in the It's Racing Esports Car 61 for Bathurst 1000. That placed 4th last year. But it was a bit of a learning curve for you, and it was a great start to get your Trackstars Racing Series career underway.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Obviously, I've never done a league and stuff like that before, but yeah, the Trackstars come a pretty long way since I joined. Obviously, we've obviously got the likes of Matt, GT Academy winner, Viper Z, Jono Stan, Captain Risky, yourself, Punce, and obviously got drivers down to like Gabans, Benjo, Dargs, and we've got drivers coming over from Gridline and different leagues coming over to combine as one. So it's good to see how big Trackstars has gotten. So we're actually currently, obviously everyone knows, or if they don't know, the owner, Big Man, Big Dog, It's Racing, who's actually races in real life. So he races sprint cars. But yeah, so we've got myself, you, Robbo as admins as well. We're actually on the lookout for probably a couple more just in case Itz's career does have a bit of a spark up with obviously post-COVID. So he's trying to step back a little bit. He's not racing next year, taking more of a managerial side of things. So he's pretty happy at the moment with how well the Trackstars has gone and how big it's gone. So.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's grown ever since I debuted in early 2020, and that's when Trackstars was what was formerly known as Core, and obviously I'm not so sure if you were aware of this, but Matt Simmons was actually a part of that, a part of the Core racing team, and he helped guide its racing and TDZ Dave into a win in the Nürburgring 24 hours. So you could say Matt was part of the Trackstars / Core family, but it's good to see him back at least in our Trackstars Division 2, and hopefully maybe next year we might be able to get him promoted into the main series if he wants to do it. That is the big if in our racing series.
Yeah, well, obviously it's going to be hard with drivers going left, right, stuff like that. So obviously I'm the main driver in the It's Racing sport for both formulas, enduro, and touring cars. So It's will be using me as the main thing, and then we're just going to look for some co-drivers. So at the moment it's just me. So we'll be on the lookout for drivers. So I wouldn't put it past It's to kind of put the question to Matt, maybe put the question to Jono, maybe even obviously. See if he puts Slayer or Gabans, never know. So that'll be coming.
Well, speaking of Slayer and Gabans, if you look at the timing screen, Gabans running his German account as his origins are from Germany. He's running second place, only 0.014 behind Duran 50 there, DJ, and Slayer's not far back as well.
Yeah, but then we go further back to 4th and 5th. We've got Viper and Matt. So I wonder.
I think they ran the strategy of running on the soft tyres to solidify what compound they're going to start on, and then now they're going on their soft tyres, super softs to set laps. But Duran 50's laps has surprisingly enough been set on the soft tyres, so his pace he's showing some really awesome pace on that soft compound, and he's just gone quicker there to 1 minute 42.5. So that's a really solid lap there for Duran 50 there, and like I said. There is no Xylon 96, but at least his teammates in Butsy 76 and Rugworth are holding up in 6th and 7th place there. So that's a good start for my guys in the Mash Buds racing camp, all putting a solid performance. Hopefully we can get them further up the grid, maybe into the top 5. That'd be great. But looking good so far. But yeah, it's a big story. Since the first round when Xylon 96 won the first race ahead of his teammate his teammate at the time, JMX, has now come into round 10 and he's going to lose his championship lead, DJ. How things turn within an instant.
Yeah, it's pretty weird seeing what happens there, but obviously JMX is now in main series alongside me, but he isn't racing this weekend, so I've got Ridwan. But the late entry into the TSF2 from Viper is just, and then he's come out dominated so well. He's just now fighting for the championship. So I think, if he has a pretty solid performance here, we'll see Viper then move into the position 1 for the TSF2. So
it shows his class, and I think you and we both know how fast he is. Like any car you give him, he can just drive to the absolute max. And he can still put 1.5 seconds on us when it comes to lap time.
Yeah, well, I mean, in that respect, he is a very people know Viper. They know Matt obviously, but I did speak to Matt and speak to Viper. I think it was a Monza round or it was one of those rounds, but they actually found more speed on the softs than what they did on the supers. So that's why you probably see them. You can probably see on the screen now. Matt's actually on the soft. So there
Interesting. And Jerome 50's gone into the pit, so he's done. So he's finished with his time. So he's provisional pole position, but we are yet to see times from Viper Z in 7th place and Mint Matt at 8th place. It's very rare to see those guys down there, but they'll be looking to set their laps right away as we look towards Mint Matt and see if we can catch an onboard here. And we'd love to see formulas racing around Bathurst, but unfortunately it doesn't really comply with FIA regulations where Formula 1 cars are a little bit too narrow, especially when it comes through the Skyline and the Dipper, where they are a little bit too steep for the floorboards in a Formula 1 car. And yeah, there's not really much runoff there, so not really much runoff on the entries into Griffins and then the cutting, because if you go off you're going to get a lot of damage, and Formula 1 cars are very expensive. But luckily for you, DJ, we will be seeing the S5000s running around there on the 6-day long Bathurst 1000.
Yeah, they actually had a S5000 test there, but I'm watching Matt now. He's gone 0.4 blue, but it's sitting on his final lap, so he has to not screw it up here to then see him go to the top. But yeah, the S5000, they actually had a run. They had a test run, so they took one car up there and he did a went around. But the S5000 doesn't actually scrape at all through the S's, through the dipper, through cutting. So yeah, so they definitely be one to watch. But we see Matt going 0.8 faster, so I'm thinking he's going to put a 141 here.
He's just fast enough, but he has to get this last section of the track. Murray's corner can really throw people out. Brake too deep, you go too wide. Brake too early, you get the inside curve. But Matt's put that perfectly. Will he go pole position? He does, and it's a full second clear of Duran 50. What a lap there by Matt. What has Viper Z got in response to that? He looks like he might be a little bit down there, but he's not going to get pole position, is he? No, it's a P2. And wow, there's 0.041 in between those guys, so we knew we had to keep an eye on those guys. But wow, I didn't think it was going to be, I knew it was going to be a 1 and 2, but I didn't think it was going to be that close, DJ.
Yeah, well, in practice, Viper was actually 0.8 behind Matt, and Mazda was splitting them. So I wonder if Mazda had a bit of a rough run here, but obviously it's going to be a long 16-lap race. And then, yeah, we'll see what the end comes, because obviously we know that your first lap can either make or break your race. But they have light damage, they have no safety cars, so yeah, we'll see what happens.
Exactly. As we run through the group, we see Matt taking provisional pole position with Viper's third in second place. Duran 50 holding on to third place, unfortunately not to get that pole position. But then we've got Gabans in fourth, SDRT Mazda from the Shade On Racing team, Sir Slayer, Blocky Rex, who's making his second race debut in the Project One Racing team SF19. with Dark 74, a returning Dark 74 after his stint at Interlagos a couple of months back. But here we are for the one and only race here at Trackstars Formula 2. We've got the two heated rivals and friendly rivals in Mint Matt and Viper Z blocking out the front row. So DJ, who have you got your money on to take out the victory?
I've got to go with my mate, my good old mate, Viper Z, mate. I'm telling you, I've got to put my Monopoly money on him.
We'll have to wait and see on the end of lap 16, but as we wait for those lights, it is lights out, green flag racing, but looks like Viper Z's got the perfect jump, but Mint Matt's got the second phase of that jump, and he's got the lead coming into Hell Corner. Viper Z's going to run a little bit wide, he's gone onto the grass there. That's going to invite Duran 50 to make a move on the outside, but he's got the toe of Mint Matt right behind him, and he's going to lock in right behind, try and get into that slipstream, but Viper is just going to hold on to second place. So a very close call for Viper Z from almost losing second place to Duran 50. As we see back there, SDRT Mazda and Sir Slayer having a bit of a ding-dong battle there with Blocky Rex right behind and going too wide into the cutting there. That is a very tricky move, an audacious move for our drivers there, but they've done that very cleanly. And I see a really clean start amongst our drivers, DJ.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. There's no damage along the drivers. Gabans is sitting pretty comfortably in fourth at the moment, so very nice showing from him. Obviously, if anyone, it's a weird sight seeing Gabans down in F2. Obviously, if anyone didn't know, I actually had a bit of a driver change in my squad, so he felt better and more comfortable in Formula 2, so I opted to change drivers. So I signed JMX and we dropped. I wouldn't say dropped, I'd say more or less that he preferred to drop down to F2, so now he's full time in F2. And JMX is full-time in main series. But yeah, he's sitting pretty comfortably there in 4th place.
He's sitting well with his team, with his good mate and his military mate in Sir Slayer right behind him in 5th place. So those two will be having a nice battle. Blocky Rex has been coming up the ranks since that Bloomin' Bay 500 in the formulas last time out. He was running a replica Michael Schumacher livery, but now he's running the replica mid-2000s to 2013 Red Bull Racing colours on his car. And he's sitting nicely in 6th place there. And I did see on the registration form that we did see a Project One racing team put a form in to register for the 2022 Trackstar Series. So maybe we're getting a sight of who's going to be racing next year in the formulas for P1 for Port Racing.
Yeah, and if BKXI can have a bit of ears burning here, mate, we call out Port, and in he comes. So I wonder if BKXI is hanging around there, mate, and we chuck a little bit of a Port in the chat. Can we get a Port in the chat?
Exactly right, but we see Darks having a bit of a battle there with Budsy and Ruckworth down in 8th, 9th and 10th there. We see Minkez, the sole Robo Sport racing driver out there. Unfortunately, there's no Robo Sport racing as he's on holidays with his family, which he's hopefully having a really nice time with. And then we see the ISAR boys in ISAR Benjo 19, Ventu Super Softs, and Big Red UFA in 14th with Devlin Calypso, our Belgian driver, in 15th place for the Speed Demon Racing. But looking back to the front, it is Mid-Matt leading the way. He always gets that early lead over Viper Z DJ. So, and then it's always towards the end, especially on the final lap in the last couple of races, it's always been Viper Z.
Yeah, it has. I've always seen Viper Z to do that bit of an undercut on Matt. So will that happen again? So we see Viper's on the softs, Matt's on the supers. So I wonder if Matt's trying to get that little bit of an early lead there.
We'll have to wait and see, because he's pulling the gap nicely to about 1.2 seconds, and he's gone fastest lap so far. So I wonder if this is the time now that Matt has actually found a bit of a comfortable spot, at least around this track, but even in the formulas, he's feeling a little bit more comfortable compared to the last few races, because he's yet to win. Surprisingly enough, he's yet to win Trackstar's Formula 2 racing, because all those race victories have gone towards Viper Z.
Yeah, but as we see here, Matt did a 43.6 on the supers. Viper did a 43.8 soft, so that 0.2 difference there, I wonder if that will come out. But if I was Viper, I wouldn't want to let that gap go out too far.
You see, that's interesting. I had no idea they're on the opposite strategy. So okay, this will be something to keep an eye on. So if Viper, do you think if you're in Viper's seat, would you think about going for an undercut, or would you pit around the same time Matt does?
I would definitely try and go for the undercut. Obviously, you know as well as I do, and anyone that races, the undercut in this game is actually very, very, very strong. So, I think if he gets on that supers, I'd say maybe around. I don't know what the tyre is like, which is pretty bad considering we got to run supers tonight. But I would say maybe around lap 8 to 9, possibly. I'm not overly sure. Obviously, they do have to do 5 laps minimum on each compound. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe around like 8 or 9. We might even see him hit around lap 7. So, and yeah, if he gets that 2-lap undercut, that'll be definitely be strong and in his hand. But Matt is a lot smarter than that. So as soon as he sees Viper pit, I'll be expecting Matt to be pitting the next lap.
We saw a really good classic race last year in both categories, in the Formula 2 and the main series, where the Formula 2 had its second round here at Mount Panorama Bathurst, which provided to be a really excellent round between the likes of D. Huso and then the Red R&R machine from Great Britain, and those two are having a really strong battle, a little bit argy-bargy and a little bit of connectivity issues between those drivers. So one driver was lagging and the other driver was stable, and then vice versa. But it was a nice solid battle, and their win ended up going towards it was a fellow at the time. It was a privateer driver, but it was a It's Racing Esports driver in the gamer tag Dirty Sanchez 0095. So maybe I wonder if Gabans gets his head down, he might be able to close the gap on towards your M50 and might be able to get a podium for himself, but he's got a good company in Sir Slayer and Mazda right behind him. It's in a very close battle for 4th place.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely one to watch. But as you see here, Mazda's on the supers, Slayer's on the softs, and Gaban's on the supers. So, would you think that the softs might be a little bit faster than the supers?
I don't think so, because I see Sir Slayer making a move there, and Mazda's following around. Oh, they almost go 3 wide through the kink before the chase, DJ. That is definitely not a spot where you want to go 3 wide onto that corner, but Gabans goes from 4th to 6th place there, and like you said, yes, looks like the Super Softs aren't really the tyre to be on, and this could maybe provide a bit of a hint towards the main series drivers later on this evening and to thinking of what tyre we have to run, because we will be running the Super Softs, Softs and the hard compounds, and it'll be an interesting oversight for our main series driver if they're watching this race to think, well, which tyre is the best for us.
Yeah, and I can tell you this much, mate, the hard tyres have absolutely no grip at all. No grip at all. Yeah.
I was always being thrown on the hard tyres when we were racing these cars in one of our private lobbies. So I was banned from running Super Soft and I had to run the hard.
Yeah.
So I can definitely concur to that and just say, yeah, the hards are no good around this track. But you know, if you get a good setup, they might be able to work. But they're only going to really come effective on towards maybe lap 6, lap 7, and we only have to do about 10 laps. I thought I saw a mistake from Mazda up there. The gap just got huge for a second there, but that's come down pretty quickly. So it looks like we've got a pretty spread out field, but not as far spread as I thought, and not as big lead that Matt's got over, say, the likes of Mazda or Vans. They're all within his pit window. So it's going to be really crucial for these guys to think about whether they do the overcut and they make Matt try to negotiate traffic when he's on his fresh soft tyres.
Yeah, it's always going back to last week, mate. Trying to pick people's strategies, it just can't work. Like it just it's just something, I don't know. I mean, Viper's just gone faster with a 43.7, and then Matt's doing high 42s. So I wonder.
But you can see the advantage on the Super Softs compared to the Softs. Matt's been able to pull out a 4.2 second over Viper Z, and Duran 50 is right behind him on the Softs as well. And he's not losing sight of Viper Z as well. So don't count out Duran 50 to possibly think about getting a P2, or maybe even better for the CP Motorsports team, maybe a possible win in his debut series in the Formula 2.
Yeah, it's hard to pick with the undercuts and overcuts and stuff like that, but I think maybe 8 seconds is a bit too much for an undercut, but anything's possible. You never know, Matt might come a bit too hot into the S's once, put in the wall, a couple of bit of damage, and then not having that aero for, say, 3 to 4 corners, you never know, it might be able to close that gap. But over the top, the gap isn't expanding too much, so it's sitting at about 6.6 seconds of Duran to Matt. So yeah, he's definitely not out of it at the moment. So I think maybe one spin for Matt, and obviously they'll close that gap pretty significantly. But that gap between him and Viper is staying at about 1.94 seconds. So it's, yeah, I guess it's hard as well with the no tuning, because then if you had the tuning, you could have a different strategy. Like, would you go try faster over the top or faster down the bottom? So
yeah, exactly right. So you see Viper just run a touch wide on the exit of Murray's corner, which is a very hard corner to negotiate, like you've demonstrated on your hot lap in the TS3, and as we've seen drivers in the TS3 try to negotiate that corner. But Duran 50's just gone over that 2 second mark, so he's going to be keeping an eye on that gap between himself and Viper Z, because he probably knows that if he's matching Viper Z's pace, it's because they're on the same tyre of compound. So he's going to be keeping an eye on, maybe he might be the first to pull the plug, pull the pin and go for the undercut compared to Viper and Matt.
Yeah, and if he does that, I think he might get the undercut on Viper, but anything's possible. I think exactly with being on lap 7, we might see the likes of the tyre wear is roughly about the same, so I wonder if Viper will pit within the next, say, 1 to 2 laps.
Because as we do know, every compound in the Formula 2 has to be used for at least a minimum of 5 laps. So they've done their 5 laps on their respective compound, so they can own. So the last time they can pit is on the end of lap 11. So it's really important for these guys to make that judgment call and know when to pit, because changing those compounds and going for an undercut or an overcut could benefit you or could make you lose out.
Yeah, so we'll just follow Matt here to see if he comes in. But if I was Matt, I would probably stay out, considering he is kind of stretching that lead a little tiny bit. But yeah, at the moment, okay, so he doesn't have a pit. I wonder if Viper's going to make it. No, he's going to run for another one. So the tyre wear for 7 laps in is pretty solid. So they've taken a little bit of a notch out. So then obviously if they cross the line now, we've got 8 laps to go. So
9 laps.
9 laps, yeah. I always forget that there's an extra lap after. So
Yeah, you always got to include the number that is on the screen. So
yeah,
8 out of 16 means 9 laps to go. But yeah, anyway, as we look on the order, the leaderboard, we still have Matt leading the way ahead of Viper in second, Duran 50 in third. SCRT Mads has now promoted himself up into 4th place, making the move on Sir Slayer a lap or so ago, with Blocky Rex actually up into 6th place. So a nice round for Blocky Rex for Port Racing, with Cabans racing under his German flag in 7th place, Dark 74 in 8th, with Rugworth in 9th place for the VL Racing MSR Racing, with Budsy rounding up the top 10. Mikes is about, looks like he's about 5 seconds behind Budsy in 11th place. The Soul Robo Sport Racing Camp holding his own in 11th, with Benjo in 12th, with Devlin Calypso actually moving himself a couple of positions up into 13th place. Venti Supersofts in 14th, and last of the runners is Big Red UFA in 15th place, which he looks like he's made a pit stop, so that's probably the reason why he's a bit further back. But a nice showing of 15 drivers on the grid in our Trackstars Formula 2 race for round 10 in the Trackstars Racing Series for Formula 2 race. Now we look on to towards the end of lap 8. Does Mid-Matt come into the pits? He does. So this is crucial for Mid-Matt. He's got to get the entry into the pit lane correct, and he's done that. Nicely done. But Viper set stays out. DJ.
Yeah, will he go for the overcut here? I'm wondering, obviously they don't have the restriction of their overtake, so I think if I was Viper here, I would be getting on that overtake and try and get that overcut. But I'm curious to see if he's going to run maybe 1 to 2 laps longer, and then
have a fresh set of compound, to have a fresh set of supers at the end.
To have
so let's keep an eye on Mid-Matt. Where does he come out? He just comes out ahead of Blocky Rex. He needs to stay out ahead of him, and he does. So that was a very close call, but Blocky Rex is right in his slipstream. Can he make a move down towards Griffin Bend? Warmer softs versus cold softs, but looks like Matt has actually come out of that in 5th place there. But he's got look at this DJ. He's got traffic. He's got Madstone. He's got Sir Slayer ahead of him. They're both on the super softs. They are worn super softs, and he's catching them very fast. So this is going to cost Matt at least maybe a lap or so. And this is a good time for Viper to get onto that overtake and use it as much as he can.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I think he might not be wanting to use it in case he wears the tyres out too much. But it's definitely a good sign here, because by the time Matt catches them, it will be around the elbow, but into the chase. So I wonder if they're going to either fight with him or let him pass.
And that's the big question, because they're not back markers. They have their respective positions, and they have worked for that position. But they do know that Mid-Matt was the leader of the race, and they want. And like you said, I wonder if they're going to start. They might think about letting him go through. It looks like Sir Slayer's done that very nicely, as Matt goes for that inside move, a crucial move for Matt there. Didn't want it to be held up behind Sir Slayer on the exit of the chase there, as we see those drivers coming in, Sir Manchester and Slayer coming in, and even Duran 50. So now Duran 50 is going on the soft side. I do see someone on the gravel there, DJ. Is that Sir Slayer that's just got onto the gravel there? Let's just catch that. Let's see if we can catch a replay of that. Somebody went off onto the grass. It was Sir Slayer was onto the gravel there, and that is a big costly mistake there by Sir Slayer.
Yeah, obviously we know how hard the entry is into the pit lane. If you come in too hot, you're definitely going to run into the grass. But look at this lead. So he's got a 9.2 second gap over Matt, and I was talking to Viper just before this race, and he said he wasn't really confident. He felt that Matt had this one over. So, will we see a debut win for Matt?
That'll be interesting for the BCG Racing in Matt, the 2015 GT Academy winner against Viper Z for the Satellite Racing Team. Won 5 of the last 6 races Viper Z has, and he looks like if he keeps his nose clean, he stays connected to the lobby, he will be taking the championship lead over Cylon 96 in the car 32. So we have to keep an eye out in the remaining 5 laps. But is this the time for Viper Z to come in? He would have to come in, you'd think, because he doesn't want to go underneath. He doesn't want to go under the 5-lap minimum marker on the tyres. So he's probably using the best of his softs, his racing softs as he can before he runs on the super softs to get a late charge on mid-mat. So we'll keep an eye on Viper. He does. So he comes into the pits nicely there, gets us stopped very well, cutting those curves, which is fine. And he's in the pit lane whilst mid-mat is negotiating Forest Elbow for the end at the end of lap 10 to commence lap 11 of 16 here at Trackstars Formula 2.
And just for anyone watching, that was actually supposed to be Murray's Corner, not Forest Elbow. So if this was in the chat,
sorry,
mate, it's alright, I got you. But yeah, so where will Viper come out in this? So we see Duram is here, so Viper comes out in front of Duram. So, but the other thing is, so that's a 7.2 second gap with 6 laps to go. But Viper has used hardly any of his overtake, but Matt's used about just over a quarter. So I wonder if Viper's going to absolutely get onto that overtake and try and haul Matt in. So,
but look at the gap between Viper and Duram. It stayed the same. So Duram hasn't really played that undercut as effective as I thought he would have. I thought he would have been a little bit closer, around about maybe 1.5 to 1 second, but he might have been held up by somebody in that pit stop, on the track. So a bit unlucky for Duram 50 to not take advantage of an undercut there. But as we see mid-mat negotiating the dipper coming towards Forest Elbow. This is Forest Elbow down here. But we've got Viper in second place. We're closing in fast and going to really use those super softs to the best he can with about 4 laps to go or 5 laps to go until he can see if he can get closer to Matt in first place.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what Viper's doing. I'm actually pretty confused, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think he's probably. Would you think he might be saving tyres for maybe 1 lap before he goes all out for the remaining 4? Maybe that might be something on his mind, just to save a bit of tyre wear, and then save a bit of tyres and then go flat out and try and catch it, because that gap is more or less the same as it was at the beginning, on the exit of Hell Corner up until the start finish line. So it's basically stayed the same. He hasn't gained much on Matt. So it's like you said, it is a bit concerning for Viper. He hasn't got the pace over Matt, but time will tell. But look at that, he's now on the overtake as we say that, and that gap is going to close. And hopefully we might be able to get another classic mid-Matt versus Viper Z final lap showdown.
Yeah, look at that. That was 7.1 seconds coming out of Hell Corner, and that is now 6.8. I think he got that down to 6.6. So that was crazy. But Matt, I'm really confused with what's going on here. So maybe Viper might be trying to charge Matt over the top and use the extra grip of the supers to reel him in, as what the softs don't have. So he's pulled in a couple of tenths here. So maybe he might do this for say 1 or 2 laps. So you can see him just go purple by 0.5. So he's really hanging the edges out on that Formula car.
Absolutely. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be another showdown on the final lap, but time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what Matt and Viper are like when it comes on the final lap and see what that gap is. But we've seen 2 classics between those guys in Matt and Viper, where they came on the last lap at the Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix, and Viper won it on the final corner there at the end of the bus stop. And then we had the last round of Monza, where he made an outstanding move on Matt at the Parabolica to take the victory. So anything can happen between those guys, and it looks like the gaps are about 6 seconds between Matt and Viper. Yeah, there you go, 6 seconds between Matt and Viper. He's got about 4 laps to go to close that down, and he's just gone purple by 141.5. So that's an astonishing pace there by Viper Z. So he's got a bit of time to find, but I'm not so sure if he's going to be on the back of his tail come lap 16.
He might. So I think he's seen here that he's pulled that gap in, and then now he'll use the overtake over the top. So he might realise that the softs and supers don't have the same speed up the straight, but then the supers are a lot stronger over the top. So you can see here the gap's gone now to 6.3. But yeah, I'm not too sure what's happening here. But I think Viper might, worst case, be saying this isn't my race, and if I keep using my overtake for a lap, within say 3 laps, my overtake's going to be gone, and he won't be able to leave it for a last lap outstanding finish. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. But he's actually put in the fastest lap with a 41.5. So that was 1.1 seconds faster than Matt. But Viper was on that overtake. So it just shows how much that overtake can do.
Exactly right, and he hasn't been able to close. It's extended out to 6.4 there, so he's not really gaining. He's actually, in a matter of fact, he's actually losing a bit of time to Matt at the top of the hills. So I'm just wondering why Viper just laid off the overtake. He might be going for a bit of overtake at the beginning, one lap, and then have a rest and then go again. But if I was Viper, I'd be hard on that overtake with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not really sure here, but I won't.
Good save by Viper Z, pushing the car to the limits there as we see a replay just negotiating the chicane, the chase here, and just talk us through this, DJ. How did he make a mistake here?
I think he's just running a little bit too hot, and then I don't know. He's got on the gas a bit too early there, so it's pushed him out.
There you go.
Yeah, he's just got on the gas a little bit too early there. Put him out on the grass, so that gap's now gone to 7.6 seconds. So I think that's Matt might have his debut win here, mate.
Very much so, and Matt hasn't been shy to say that he hasn't been the strongest when it comes to Formula racing, as he's just coming up to lap some traffic now. I believe that could be Devlin, it could be Big Red UFA, I'm not sure. But yeah, Matt has said he's been struggling a little bit to find some pace compared to the touring car Nissan and Honda that he's been running. So, but if he gets his first victory in the formulas, then it'll give him a bit of confidence maybe towards the last 3 rounds in the F2 Championship.
Yeah, and I think he's sitting about 8th or so in the... Yep, so he's sitting 8th at the moment, so he's actually behind Broccoli, and he's 42 points behind Duran.
There you go, and Duran is in 3rd place, so it'll be a close battle between Duran and Matt, that's for sure, for possibly to getting themselves in the top 5. But this is the final round where the last drop round will be in effect, ladies and gentlemen. So after this round, all of the drivers that are in the top 8 or top 16, or doesn't matter where you are, if the drivers that want to contest for the championship, they have to be on the track for the last 3 rounds, because after this round there is no more drop rounds. You miss a race and your championship quest is over. So it'll be hard yards for Viper Z and Xylon 96, and even for Robbo Sport Racing, who's actually down in 3rd place, and he might be down to 4th place after missing this round as well. So it'll be between Matt. It looks like it might be between Viper and Xylon, but I think we know between those 2 drivers, I believe Viper's just that little bit too quick to Xylon 96.
Yeah, I think in that aspect, Viper might have this one from here, but obviously his other league is on break at the moment. So yeah, he's gone purple here. So he looks like.
Well, who knows? Well, that's the thing. Who knows? Who knows what can happen to Viper Z? He might not be able to make it, and he's probably in the same boat as you, DJ, with the supercars officialing. If he's going to be down at Eastern Creek, that if he's not going to be able to make it, he might not be able to make a few rounds, and that way Xylon will be able to catch up. So there's a lot of factors coming into the last 3 rounds in the Formula 2 series.
Yeah, well, the round he might be tossing up is November 21. So that is, I think that's the last Eastern Creek round before we head up to the mountain. So if he misses that and Xylon doesn't, then maybe Xylon might be able to scratch that lead back in. But I'm just looking at the standings here. Mickey's is actually 60 points behind his boss in Robo Sport. So as long as Mickey's finishes this, he might jump into third.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so he's doing really well, Mikos. Him and Rob have been the centre front of the Division 2 series, and they've been showing some really good performances to maintain their top fives in the championships. At least they were here earlier in the season, but now they're getting overtaken by the faster guys in Mint, Matt, Viperset, Duran 50, Madster, and all those names. They've all come in and they've just said, well, you know, we're going to be running Division 2 from now on, boys. So you've had your run. Now it's our turn. But for the final time, negotiating the Forest Elbow, it looks like about a 9.5 second lead over Viperset. So that's Viperset over and out. And I believe it is going to be a nice, easy victory, a clean sweep victory for Matt and for the BCG racing team.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there we didn't have a bit of a Viper Matt show, but Matt's put in a solid performance there. And yeah, looks like he's come across with the win. So as long as he doesn't spin it down here into Murray's with those worn soft tyres, we'll see Matt take out his maiden victory in the Formula Series. And there it is. And a big congratulations to Matt. Mint Matt in the number 89 BCG Racing Formula car, taking out his first win in the Formula Series, and with Viper Z coming across in second place. So
setting fastest lap. He wanted to get bragging rights over his mate. So congratulations to Matt. Viper and Duran 50 both taking out the podium positions there, with the best of the rest in Madster. A solid fourth place for SDR Team Madster. A bit of return form for Madster, and he does like Bathurst, and he manages to inherit fourth place there with Sir Slayer in fifth. And Blocky Rex has come a nice performance for Blocky Rex for Port Racing in sixth place, just ahead of Cabans there in seventh, with Dark 74 welcoming return for Dark 74 in eighth place, with Budsy 76 in ninth, and Mikes has actually gone into the top 10 as a matter of fact there. So looks like Rockworth made a mistake on that last couple of laps there, unfortunately, but Rugworth is down in 11th place, with Veggie Supersoft in 12th place, Isar Benjo in 13th, Devlin Calypso in 14th place, and Big Red UFA a lap down in 15th place. So a solid performance there by a driver's DJ, but a man of the match and a great win for Mint Matt in the BCG Racing Team. A dominant performance for Matt.
Yeah, it was an outstanding drive there. But yeah, it was very, very nice drive there by Matt. But I'm surprised Sirik didn't actually jump into the Formula 2s this week.
I think he said he wanted to concentrate a little bit more on the tin top racing than Formula racing, which is fair enough. Obviously, some drivers have preferred tin tops than formulas, but some like both, but like you and I. But one guy that definitely likes formulas at the moment is taking in his maiden victory. It is Mint Matt for the BCG Racing car number 89, taking the victory and pole position for the Trackstars F2 round 10 here of Australia for the Australian Grand Prix at Mount Panorama Bathurst. As you run through the grid, as we run through the results page, big congrats to Matt taking victory ahead of his mate in Viper Z, who just didn't have the pace at the end there to have that classic Matt versus Viper battle, last lap battle, with Duran 50 rounding up the podium position.
Yeah, it's a solid performance there by Matt. It's pretty much, he led from to lights to flag, so he had a bit of a fight going on maybe lap one, and then he just kind of checked out his gap and just kind of gapped it out a little bit more as it went on. So solid performance there by Matt, taking out his maiden victory in the formulas. So a big congrats to him, and obviously a Mint Matt Viper Z 1-2 with Duram rounding out the podium. So very nice performance by all those guys, rounding out all the way down here, down to Big Red UFA in 15th. So I don't think Big Red is actually pretty what would you call it? Confident or experienced in the Formula cars. So
Yeah, probably compared to his TS3 car. So at least it's a good debut outing for Big Red UFA. Good to see him in a Formula car, and obviously we want to try and encourage as many drivers as we can in our community just to give everything a go. And if you want to give it a go, then head over to our Discord page, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Trackstars Racing Series. But that is it for our Trackstars Formula 2 series and our round 10 of the Australian Grand Prix here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. DJ will be seeing you very soon on track. We'll be seeing you and myself very soon on the track for the formulas, and we'll have Nismo taking over the stream here at Trackstars Racing Series YouTube channel. But on behalf of us and the F2 guys, we will catch you guys in the next round in 3 weeks' time.